Greetings, YouTubers. It is your buddy Choppadong. We're going to discuss NBA Draftkings today, and we're also going to include some tiers discussion. I had a couple of requests, taking me a couple of days to get to the point. I don't play a lot of tiers, but I can certainly guide you through. When you have research tools, it's pretty easy to decipher, and really we're just discussing things like uh, maybe who we would play versus who we think the public is going to play. And we're going to assemble some pretty competitive lineups that way. But we will also build a player pool for DraftKings tonight, and let's kind of dive right in. If you're new to me, I appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. I'm a coach and contributor with DFSArmy.com. Basically, one-stop shopping for anything daily fantasy sports, from NBA, PGA, NHL, MLB, NFL, whatever. As NFL winds down, people kick over to NBA. That's where I'll be. But I will do some NHL and some PGA type of stuff as well. Hopefully to introduce you to some of the tools, some of the things that we do inside the website, and then really focus more on the coaching and the teaching that we do. We take people who don't know other sports, maybe you're new to the game, maybe you're just looking for help, they're sick of losing, they're sick of buying lineups out on the internet and not getting anywhere. And we take those people and we teach them how to build their own lineups and teach them how to become better, fundamentally sound players. Basically plug the leaks in your boat and hope the boat starts to float. It's pretty simple. You find me by going down to the comments section, clicking the link dfsarmy.com, using coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and getting that 20% discount. I'm into saving you money. I'd rather keep more money in your bankroll than anything else. Let's dive into the tiers discussion first, show you the research station at dfsarmy.com, and why or how do we sort this out, because I played with it a little bit, and to get just what I wanted, I need to remove the blanks. The first thing I did was a sort by ascending order, and you're going to see a bunch of blanks pop in here, guys that are not listed whatsoever. So now I have to go back in here, use the filter, and take the blanks out. Now I've got my 6 tiers on a 4-game slate tonight, and I've got basically a way to deal with this is what we do with player pools. I want to filter out the crap, and I only want to look at what it is that I need to see tonight to make competitive lineups. A lot of the rest of the stuff is just noise. Get rid of it. Cut your player pool down to 30 or 40 players that fast and knock hours off your research. Yes, you're occasionally going to look over a guy who goes for 10x and whatever, but generally speaking, that doesn't kill you if you've properly allocated your lineups through different contests and different layers of contests that actually are going to produce results for you. We were talking yesterday in PGA, cash versus GPP, and why can't you be cash only, and why can't you be GPP only? Why do you need to blend the two? These types of things go on in our coaching forums every day, and a ton of members messaged me actually last night, a couple of them publicly, but a few of them privately, and said, that was awesome. That was worth the price of admission alone. That discussion with you guiding that gentleman through kind of thinking about what type of contest he enters and why really helped me get on another level or get on the right track towards something I was struggling with. That's what we do. Tier 1, very simple. If you want the cheat code, you want the cheating way, we have the second most accurate projections in the damned industry. So you just take the highest projected guy, right? Tier 1, cat. Yeah, you can talk floor and ceiling and blah, 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 blah. Value doesn't matter in tiers. All we're looking at is the top producing dude on the slate, cat. Okay, now you want to talk about maybe where the chalk might go, and we're looking at people like Westbrook, probably chalky. So again, Cat makes a great pivot. He's projected for a few more points, and he probably won't be as highly owned as Westbrook. Your real sneaky GPP play would probably be Paul George. However, when we're looking at Kawhi Leonard being questionable, that would be your ultimate risk. But I don't see Kawhi usually having the upside, and that's shown here in the ceiling numbers, to take on a Westbrook or a Karl Anthony Towns in this type of matchup. So it is what it is. If you want to look at the and one ratings, you can. You can see Kawhi has the strongest matchup. But again, we have to go into what's Kawhi able to do. Is he able to really score 68, 70 points? Probably not nearly as often as a Westbrook or a Karl Anthony Towns can. Therefore, the ceiling is probably lowered. And I'm looking for pure ceiling in GPPs. Again, it leads me to Cat probably being the number 1 overall. And the beauty is I probably get him a little bit less ownership than a Russell Westbrook. Now, if you're looking pure cash games, you might look at Westbrook for floor because obviously touches the ball a lot, distributes the ball, triple-double, everything. Everything that going on in that safety. But just looking at it tonight, that would be your lead dog in the clubhouse is our buddy Cat. Tier 2, Booker, Doncic, Lillard, Tobias Harris. So out of these 4 clowns, where are we going? Again, you can look at the projections and you can pick straight from the top and take Devin Booker, but you also have to realize Booker's a little bit more volatile. So ceiling wise, he also leads the way. Maybe your GPP type of play. Think of where the public might be going. Doncic, Lillard for point guard, for floor. Now granted, Lillard's on no rest, so's Doncic. But these are the types of things where you have to kind of consider where might everybody be going. Now, I don't know. I don't play a lot of tiers, but I would think myself, if I'm just going for safety and just trying to hit cash, I'm probably going Westbrook Lillard. So that would mean that anything but that works. And then tier 1, we mentioned that Karl-Anthony Towns probably has a higher ceiling tonight and probably gets the lower ownership. So that might be, as well as just an overall raw projection, a little bit higher. So I think that's the play there for me. But Lillard is maybe in play. Maybe it balances out a little bit of the safety. I don't know that Booker and Doncic maybe test that ceiling. Booker obviously can go on an absolute tear. So perhaps, but it feels very, very risky, very GPP. If I was playing some kind of a cash or even kind of an in-between type of game, like a league or something like that, I might opt for Lillard here. Might be my favorite. Now, doesn't mean that's where we end up. Other things pop out, news breaks, whatever else. And maybe one of these guys is missing a companion starter and all of a sudden shoots to the top, his usage goes up and his safety, comes up with it. And then all of a sudden with the ceiling combined with the safety, we're good to go. But being a point guard, a true point guard, Damian Lillard might be the play. Tier 3, Lowry, Nurkic, Harrell, Fox, Buddy Hield, whatever, however you pronounce. I'm not into pronouncing names. I mean, my last name's Meyer. It's pretty damn simple, so I don't need to learn all these fancy names. Again, you're looking at the point guard for safety, maybe a center for a little bit of power. Don't know that I would run Harrell in that group, but maybe I would. When I'm looking at the pure projections again, Lowry jumps up 43, has the highest ceiling in this tier. Probably where I wind up going. They're at home. They've got a good DVP rating. He's got a good matchup rating. Might be the leader in the clubhouse. Might be the obvious pick. Point guard, point guard, point guard feels a little bit weird, but it is tiers. And in tiers, we don't care about anything but just building the bet. We don't care about salary. We don't care about value. We don't care about balance too much. You might avoid a little bit of correlation stacking, which that definitely does. If you run all 3 point guards out there, you definitely obliterated the correlation play. And so you're probably spread out a little bit safe. Maybe for a GPP, you would come back to looking to pair some guys up somewhere when we get the chance to. But right now, it doesn't look like we have much of a chance. Looks like Lowry might be the leader of that pack. So if everybody's going on Lowry, who else can take out Lowry? Nurkic, back-to-back, no rest, maybe not. He's got a similar ceiling, though, according to these projections. Harold feels like he's just not quite there yet, so I guess Tobias Harris by default. But again, this is the thing. You don't have to be completely different every single place you go. You don't have to get off the the chalk's going to be on Westbrook, so I got to pivot. The chalk's going to be on Lillard. I have to pivot. The chalk's going to be on Lowry. I have to pivot. No, you don't. You can take 4 out of your 5 or 4 out of your 6 guys and be rather chalky with them and then pivot off in 1 or 2 areas and still be unique or unique enough to do some damage. You just have to fade the right guy, and your guy has to go off. So who do you think is the safest, or who do you think is the best play in these tiers? And then decide whether or not you want to, kind of get a little bit off that track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options here, a little bit bigger tier from Adams, Siakam, Ibaka, McCollum, Will Cauley-Stein down to Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose again, point guard, McCollum, point guard eligible, but more of a shooting guard. There's your pair with Lillard. If you think they feed off each other and you want to take some of the points from McCollum and some of the assists from Lillard and maybe correlate on that play. I tend not to do that myself in regular DFS. Not that I don't correlate. I don't tend to correlate point guards and shooting guards. You got Siakam down low. That would be a Kawhi pivot. You would definitely be all alone there. Ibaka pivot, definitely be all alone there. Steven Adams with Westbrook. Now there's a pivot that a correlation play that I might use. I do like the center / power forward paired with a point guard. The reason why, point guard shoots, who's there to scoop the rebound, who's there, if he's got an easy layup or a dunk put back, something like that, or even an alley-oop type of situation. The point guard's usually the guy dishing the ball to him. So those correlate a little bit stronger than maybe just passing out to the shooting guard and hoping he drops a tray. But there's a couple of opportunities for correlation there. Looking through this situation here, we've got Adams with the highest projections. Then we've got Siakam, Ibaka, McCollum, Will Cauley-Stein. Looking at the ceiling play, again, it kind of runs in the same order. I'm not sure. With Derrick Rose and the Karl Anthony Towns play is interesting. That one's a little bit interesting because if Derrick Rose gets the minutes and ends up, doing a little bit of work on his own, his knees, his broken down knees are feeling better today. There's an interesting tournament play. That might be where you get a little bit off chalk. I'm trying to think of where the chalk would be. Maybe it's Westbrook Adams. Um, Gosh, it's kind of hard to get a feel for it down this low. But I do think that Derrick Rose and Karl Anthony Towns would be a unique thing to play, and it may just work for you. Now, again, the idea with going off chalk and going into more of the game theory correlation pivot type plays is they're going to lose more often than not. And the reason why they're going to lose more often than not is because they're suboptimal. But the beauty is all you're really doing is you're trying to intentionally be suboptimal to have less people to beat when you are correct. So if you're only correct, say, 2 out of 10 times, at least those 2 times you're correct, you're fighting maybe 100 people instead of 8,000 people in a tournament. That's where the advantage is. That's why you'd make that move. But again, the riskier the play, and I don't know how risky this one is, but the riskier the play, the more reward you're going to need to be. So you're going to need to be in some of those bigger GPPs to do that. You wouldn't do this in a head-to-head. You wouldn't do this even in some 40-man or, 100-man tournament type situation. The reward isn't there to get back only 10 or 12 times your money. You need to get back probably, 50, 100 times your money, some kind of big return to take those kinds of gambles. So keep that in mind. We'll make this just a tiers video, and we'll come back and we'll do the regular player pool. Otherwise, this thing's going to be really long. Looking down here, tier 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more players from Teague down to Schroeder. Schroeder's another correlation play, obviously, in OKC. Jeremy Grant, that's an intriguing one to throw into tiers. Bogdanovich, Wiggins in there with Derrick Rose, Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins. I don't know. Where would the chalk be? Obviously, Wiggins has the highest projection, probably the highest ceiling, pure ceiling. But when I'm looking at floors, you're down in here with Bogdanovich and Jeremy Grant, which is, again, interesting. I don't know how much I want to bank on a floor in this tier down here. I probably want the upside. Wiggins feels a little bit risky just in general. Bogdanovich probably been a little bit safer. Harrison Barnes maybe a little bit. Schroeder definitely a little bit safer. Although I would check his game logs, I would scroll over to something like this, who's hot, who's not, and find Schroeder because he's down a little bit on his last 10 games or 3 games compared to his last 10. I would want to find out why that is. Why is his 10-game average 24, his 5-game average 28, and then his 3-game average 23? Something's up. Either his shot's not falling, his usage has dropped a little bit, or he's just not getting the minutes. You need to figure that out to see if he's a good player or not. That's typically where you're going to be deciphering these lower level plays. Looking down here, Aminu probably hits the list tonight. Beverly might have the floor. No, Aminu has a floor over Beverly even. Alexander, this would be one to be watching for if news breaks and this one opens up. I mean, it's a great value play on a regular slate, but looking at this, it's interesting how that would end up panning out if one's a point guard, one's a shooting guard or something tonight, and they're going to get a bunch of minutes. And it does have Shy with minutes attached, so that's interesting. That's worth digging into for sure. Danny Green, Van Vliet. Van Vliet in Toronto's worth watching news as always. Wes Matthews doesn't have the ceiling, but Wes Matthews always seems to be at least playable on most everyday slates. He might be the guy I would consider the higher floor guy out of this tier if I was just trying to bank some points kind of towards the end of my build. Taj definitely has some upside to him, but he needs the minutes to do it. Looks like the most upside here is going to Shy, which is interesting. If you're looking at this, well, Beverly at 41, that's pretty intriguing too. So I would say most of the people are going to be taking from these top three. If you really wanted to throw caution to the wind in some kind of a GPP, I might come down. Probably not Wes Matthews, where I'm buying more floor and stability, but I might end up running a Taj, hoping for the best. If not, I'm probably just in the top three with everybody else. So there are options there inside these tiers to finagle around. You might get, where your pivot in tier one is going to be more of a GPP type of move, a slightly contrarian move. Down towards the end, I don't know what's more advantageous. If you should be just taking chalk and buying floor to round yourself out and hope your top tier pivot works, or if you should be pivoting again and doubling down on upside and taking a very, very risky play down here. The tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 guys are obviously going to be inherently more inconsistent than the top guys. That's why they're not top guys, which also stands to reason why those top guys would make more viable pivots, which again is something that you can take out into your regular DFS game, your classic slate game, because you need to always be thinking about the game within the game. You need to be thinking about how this relates to that, this group of players, which one's more valuable, Karl Anthony Towns or Russell Westbrook, because most times it doesn't make sense to fit them both in there. James Harden or Russell Westbrook doesn't make sense to fit both of them in your lineup because you're really, really starved elsewhere for value on a classic slate. Now, in a tiers play, you've still got to choose one or the other. These types of things, if you do some tiers research early in the day, that may help guide your classic, your classic research later in the day, because you find a couple of plays that you like, a couple that maybe you agree that Karl Anthony Towns is the play, and Russell Westbrook maybe becomes the play later because you realize I can get some Wiggins and I can get some Derrick Rose, and that's some exposure to Karl Anthony Towns outside of there, whereas Russell Westbrook kind of has to show, and if Paul George doesn't take over and end up supplying things, Russell's going to have to take over. So I get my Russell Westbrook and my OKC usage here, whereas if I need Minnesota usage because they've obviously got a good matchup against Phoenix, I can get that elsewhere. These are the decisions, the little nuances in the game that make the difference between a good player and a great player, or a non-profitable player and a profitable player. And these are the kind of things we're always talking about inside DFSArmy.com as a group, as a group of members and as coaches and experts that help guide people when they have these types of plays, maybe point them to the right numbers to dig into. Ultimately, you've got to make the decision. We don't hand out lineups. Ultimately, you're the one that has to pull the trigger. We can give you a core of players. We can give you maybe a player pool list or something like that, help you narrow down a player pool, which, by the way, come back and I'll narrow down a DraftKings player pool for you here in a bit. But that's kind of the idea. So let's get on out of here. Let's open up the coaching for you guys. DFSArmy.com, coupon code CHOP, CHOP. This was a little bit of tiers discussion. Hopefully you liked this. If you do, comment, like it, share it out on Twitter. Love to talk to you more about it. But like I said, I don't play a lot of tiers. I've played enough to maybe be a little bit dangerous. I'm not going to be a fish in your pond. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the pro that's going to be out there, winning you tons of GPPs with some shifty, smart pivot. These are things that maybe I learn. If you guys, the public feedback forces me into doing more research on tiers, maybe we learn and we grow. That's the idea. That's where most of the coaching comes in, and that's the type of coaching that I love doing inside DFS Army anyway. So hit the like and subscribe button, guys. Pass me around out there on social media. Love to help talk to you guys. Love to help you guys build your lineups. It's very, very fun what I do. Very, very rewarding. I get a lot of thank yous and stuff in private, and so obviously we must be doing something right. Come on in. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the like, and we will talk to you here in a little bit when we come back and do the DraftKings player pool stuff. All right. Peace out.